Hello and welcome back to another episode of Inside Voices First Takes. I'm, as always, your host, Adam Rubin, and joining me back from his... Oh, wait. I thought he was... Is he not back? Tristan, is he not back? I thought he was back.
Hey-o! Hey-o!
Oh, there he is. Colin Binnig, back from his travels abroad. Colin, how was Ireland?
Top of the morning to you, everybody. Ireland was fantastic, but I am back, everyone. Who missed me? Probably not you, but I am back.
Great. So you are. Why don't you tell the folks what we've just come from the theaters, having just seen?
We had just seen, everybody, Ocean's 8.
Taylor Swift? Can't we just go to this? Do we have to steal stuff?
Yes.
Is it genetic? Are the whole family like this?
Literally.
Yes, indeed we did. I assume there'll be...
Yeah, transition happened here. No, we don't have the budget for that. We don't have the budget.
No,
Transition.
we don't. Okay, we cut that.
No.
Great. So yes, indeed, we've just come from the theater where we've seen Ocean's 8 opening night. Struggled our way in to get a ticket, and that opening night Ocean's 8 crowd. And don't leave me in suspense, Colin. What did you think?
Okay, before I can talk about my initial thoughts of the movie, I want to talk about going into the movie. Two things that this movie already did right or better than this movie was being compared a lot to the female Ghostbusters, right? Because it's similar circumstances. You know, you're taking a property that was all male before, you're making it all female. So there was a lot of comparisons already going on. But this movie going into two things already better than the Ghostbusters movie. Mm-hmm. Number one, they did not make this a reboot. Okay, this was a connected movie to the original trilogy.
Right.
So they didn't just start over from scratch and just
it's a sequel, not a reboot. Absolutely.
More like a spin-off sequel connect, but there is a connection. It doesn't pretend like nothing else happened before, and we're starting over. They didn't do that, and I like that decision more.
Mm-hmm. It definitely is a sequel. It's a sequel. It's not a spin-off. It's a sequel.
Well, it's a sequel spin-off, because it doesn't really follow the original Ocean's crew, so it's a new branch.
But it's branded Oceans. All right. Okay, fine.
I kind of mean. Anyway.
Fine.
And as a result of that, also, they didn't use the exact same title. This movie isn't Ocean's 11. It's Ocean's 8. They didn't just reuse the original title. They named it Ocean's 8. Mm-hmm. And that's very good, because that way it's your own thing, but you at least acknowledge you are connected to the original. So already going in.
That is absolutely, though, following the original's naming structure. Ocean's 11, 12, 13, now it's 8. It's always the number of people. It's not
I understand, but they could have, if it hadn't been like a sequel spin-off that was connected, they could have also just called this movie Ocean's 11. And
I get that. You've made the point that it was good that it wasn't a remake. Yes, it was good that it wasn't a remake.
Okay, so it would be too soon for that, because it was 41 years after the Rat Pack movie when we got the new Ocean's 11. It's only been 11 years since Ocean's 13 to Ocean's 8. It's not really enough time to do a full reboot, so I was happy with that.
Who was talking about a reboot? Why are we talking about a reboot?
Well, because some people, when they saw the Ghostbusters, that was a reboot, and everyone thought that was supposed to be Ghostbusters 3. And they're like, nope, we started over. And I'm like, oh, no, that was a bad decision. So I'm glad they didn't make this decision.
Yes.
Okay,
yes, fine.
Now for the movie itself.
Yes, the movie they actually did make.
Ocean's 8.
Yes.
Great cast for the 8 members of the crew on the team. The character, or actually the actress who I thought stole the show, was Anne Hathaway. Mm-hmm. Anne Hathaway's character is so good, and she plays it so well. It's like over the top, but not too much. Still believable. And she's also, by the end, very competent. Not too ditzy, which is what I was worried about going in, about okay, she's just playing a ditzy actress who doesn't, think she's just all about herself and very selfish. Not really. That's just a little bit of it. But I was very, very convinced by her character. And I thought Anne Hathaway did a great job. She stole the show for me, for sure. All the other actors are great. All the other characters are great. And unfortunately, that is most of my compliments for this movie. In terms of direction, in terms of humor, backstory, and score, this movie falls short of the first three Ocean's movies.
Which incidentally gets me to my first. The only thing I'll change about what you said is that I didn't think they were very good characters because we didn't have enough time for them to develop into characters. All the actresses were good and they all had a different flavor to them, but that's the best you can really say.
Well, I thought the Anne Hathaway character, we learned enough about her to make her pop.
Yeah, that was the one. Well, of course, she's the standout character. She's the only. She and the orchestrator of this whole thing, Sandra Bullock's character, are the only two who we know who really have any kind of screen time to become characters for us. The rest of them are all definitely sidekicks.
I would say Sandra Bullock and Kate Blanchett's character also had like the most attempt at like fleshing out more of their past or more of like
Kate Blanchett's a little bit, not much. Not much.
Because she and Sandy are like a duo. I thought the two of them together, that was a good, go between, like the George Clooney, Brad Pitt stuff. Yeah, but like you, I agree. I don't think we got enough of it to really, make it like, pop on screen as much as the original. Trilogy. But I will. It's like so. I'll say just in consensus, it's a serviceable movie. I don't know if I could call it a good movie. I will say I think I liked it more than Ocean's 12 because Ocean's 12 was more disappointing to me going in when I had such high standards after the Ocean's 11. Mm-hmm. So I'd give this a 6 out of 10. That's my first take.
Okay. See it or
not? I would not say see it in theaters. I would say if it's on TV, see it.
All right. And in a fun twist, I'm going to be a little bit more generous than Colin on this. Despite broadly agreeing with everything you said about the movie, I think that if you will be satisfied by seeing an interesting heist with an ensemble cast of excellent actresses, then it's still a movie that you could see in theaters. I think if you want to go in and see a cool heist, this definitely delivers that, which was the most important thing for it to deliver. So I think if you know who you are, if this looked like a fun movie to you, you absolutely can feel comfortable going in and see this as a date night movie, go in and see it in theaters. I don't think you need to rush there, and I don't think it'll be hard to get a ticket, but you could definitely go see it in theaters. Yeah, that's my take on it. You say see it on TV, huh? Wait till it's on cable?
I don't think you need to go to the theater to see it, especially if you have, hopes of it rivaling the Ocean's 11 specifically. Since that.
Well, yeah, no, let those hopes die. Let those hopes die. It does not rival Ocean's 11, but it is an interesting heist. It engages you the whole time, I thought, and in my theater there definitely were. Genuine emotions when you saw how things went down and when twists were revealed. So, if as long as you go in with realistic expectations, see it in the theater, have a good time, have fun. Yeah. Otherwise, yeah.
Like I said, it's serviceable. So if you don't mind that, you're not gonna be disappointed in that. Okay, then yeah, go see it. But I'd say for serviceable, you don't need to really see it in the theater necessarily.
I get it. You've made that clear. That's your point of view. I think it's a little better than serviceable. I think it's a very specific movie. It's a heist-only movie, and if that's going to work for you, then go see it. And if you do, come back afterwards, because now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty where we can unleash exactly what the issues were that kept this movie from being better than fine or serviceable. Mm-hmm. Why it didn't rise to the level of Ocean's 11, and I think it's very clear. And I think, unfortunately, they drew attention to it themselves, which is there's not the sense of humor that Ocean's 11 had, and that's critical.
I mean, you're absolutely right. There was some humor for sure, but just like
barely. There was barely any humor in it.
Well, it's not just what Ocean's 11 blew me out of the water. Not just with the humor in the in the dialogue, in the screenplay, but it was also the rhythm of the dialogue. It is a very specific back and forth between most of the crew, the cast, in terms of how they deliver the humor. And
very true.
Whereas eight I think had some good humor. I didn't get that snap crackle pop, that self-aware winking at you at the camera or at the audience about how this crew they know they're Hollywood royalty, like George and Brad and Matt Damon are. I don't know. It just it didn't have that flair, I guess.
Because it didn't have humor. It did not have a sense of humor. This movie.
No, it had humor. No,
it really didn't.
There were humor. There were moments of humor.
Barely any, though, Colin, is what I'm saying. Barely any. In Ocean's 11, every conversation, to get to the snap, crackle, pop you're talking about, every character is witty. Everything's interesting. You have characters that themselves are very funny, right? You have Reiner's character, where everything is amazing coming out of him. You have Saul, where he's always there to be the comic relief. And the fact that Saul visits her...
Reiner is playing Saul. You just named the same person twice.
Oh, excuse me. Who's the rival casino boss?
Andy Garcia, the antagonist?
No. The rival, the one who comes to visit her.
Elliot Gould. You're thinking Elliot Gould.
Elliot Gould. What's his character's name?
Ruben.
Ruben. Thank you. Excuse me, not Saul. Ruben.
Your last name, buddy.
Well, can I tell you? Spelled differently. You had Ruben, who was there to tease the movie when it needed to be teased and be a good sense of humor and a grounded base. And the fact that he comes in at the beginning of the movie really draws your eye to the fact that he's not in the rest of it and there's no replacement, which is weird because the movie was so blatantly structured to be, we're going to go beat by beat like Ocean's 11. We're going to start the same way where she's getting her parole hearing. We're going to go into the crew thing. We're going to see her do the crime. It was so similar and so parallel in so many ways that to lose the most critical element, which was that sense of humor and that build-up that gave you the level of suspense that was appropriate by the time you got into the heist, that was completely missing. I found myself not really feeling like anything in this movie was difficult for them.
Well, let me deconstruct some of what you just said, because I agree with some of it. First of all...
Deconstruction begin.
Yeah, let the deconstruction begin. First of all, you're kind of right with that. The movie kind of paints itself into a corner by only giving itself 8 members. It doesn't even have 11 members, so therefore there's less characters in the heist who could potentially be funny or make an impact or stand out. It's already a less selection of people.
Yeah, but there's plenty of people that they could have found some funny.
It still is. But in terms of what you said about, again, I thought Anne Hathaway's character was very funny because she was very kind of her personality was so extreme compared to everybody else. That's what made it funny. Like when she's putting on the diamonds for the first time and looking in the mirror, what she's saying to herself, that's pretty funny. That is really funny, I thought.
Sure. And I agree with you.
And then there are just little other moments that were here, like with the what was it? I can't think of it right now, but I'm just saying there were some occasional funny dialogue moments, like with the Russian hackers joke. Okay, that kind of reminded me of Ocean's 11 a bit, but it was so short.
It's hard to find a Russian who's not a hacker. All right, fine.
It was 2 lines, okay?
It doesn't build. The point is they're all, the few jokes that are in the movie are all single fire, joke. There's no build. That build is what gives it that snap, crackle, pop that you're talking about. Nobody's witty bantering with each other. Nobody's building on the last thing that got set. And, you can tell it was written by somebody else.
The humor, I will say, lacked the wittiness. And that was the biggest flaw in that category. I'm with you a little bit about it following mostly the Ocean's 11 story format, and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
I will add, though, that actually once we got halfway and we got to like the heist night and then everything after that, I actually thought the plot all of a sudden started to follow what I call the unofficial Ocean's movie, Logan Lucky, a little bit, where
where
they show like the main heist, right? but then they show the investigation of the heist afterward, and then they show the real heist after the investigation. Because that was not Ocean's 11. They just showed like the twist of how they got how they pulled it off. There was no investigation part in Ocean's 11. It ended with them doing it, and that was it. Yeah. So I actually found myself going, "Oh, this is like another Ocean's movie," but that's not official. So
well, I mean, it was structurally the same in that you think you've seen the heist, and oh my goodness, there was sort of a snag, and then but the real heist, here's how we really pulled it off. Except that again, the snag wasn't even a snag. Everything's so easy. There's never for 1 second any real sense of this might not work. Like what works nicely about Ocean's 11 is you do feel like this is a real problem. When Ocean gets caught, it's a real problem, and there's actual interest. In this one, the investigator is hot on their tail, and then they're immediately friends, and he totally goes with the first thing she says. And that's how the whole movie was. You never saw there were never any obstacles. There were just, here's a new thing. Here's how we're going to solve it. Here's a new thing. Here's how we're going to solve it. And everything was easy, and the whole plan worked perfectly. It lacks the fun of Ocean's 11. And you don't feel the up and the down. You don't feel the ride of it.
I will say a lot of what you said has merit. I will say I thought there was one circumstance where there was maybe a problem, and that was when they found out that there was a magnet to undo the necklace. They all seemed like, how are we gonna? Oh no, that's something we didn't see coming. Now they did overcome it pretty quickly, but at least
immediately.
But at least they didn't acknowledge this is something we did not plan for. Okay, let's take a minute and think about how to do it. So at least I acknowledge that.
But that's what I'm saying. That's worse. Because that was your opportunity. Oh, good, an interesting thing. Oh, how are we going to get around this? What Ocean's 11 does really nicely is present these problems and then make you wait to see how they'll have gotten around it so that you're worried about it for them. And this one is just instantly, okay, yeah, let me call my expert. And the next shot, she's on the train. She's figured it out. She's built a whole thing for the video somehow. And then, okay, yep, job done. It doesn't fail. The thing works perfectly when they try it. There are no problems on the job. Everything's taken care of in advance and taken care of easily.
I just remembered too when the guard almost finds Mindy Kaling's character while she's still trying to cut up the necklace. That was almost a moment too, and yes, they were able to overcome it.
That is the one genuine moment. The one genuine moment, which didn't even require any improvisation, just was like quickly, now hit your cue now.
Right.
Again, easily stopped.
I do have to disagree with you though about You're right about how Ocean's 11 had a little bit more had more dramatic, I guess, stakes to it, but 12 and 13 don't. 12 and 13 are very
definitely not as good as 11.
Well, but 12 and 13 are much more flimsy. In fact, that's the problem with 12. 12 is just all humor, and the heist is just lacking. All that part is lacking. 13 brought it nice to a closer balance, but 11 was the only one that was actually more of a drama. With funny parts, of course, but it took itself more seriously than 12 and 13, and 8 follows more of the 12 and 13 less dramatic stakes in terms of pulling off the heist. So
they removed the humor. You can't do both. You can't do both.
The humor could have been better and more, but I think there was humor. But the problem with all that, though, I think it comes with the director choice. Steven Soderbergh did the original trilogy. He has a great visual eye and flair to him. This movie was done by Gary Ross, who was a friend of Soderbergh. But you could just tell, there was a couple split screens, moments, but still not enough to make it like that jazzy style, or like the cross dissolves. There were barely any of those. The score was not done by David Holmes, who just had so much energy to his score. So everything, it just was. If they had gotten Soderbergh and David Holmes back, I think I might have liked this movie enough to recommend it to see it in theaters. But alas, no.
And as my grandmother liked to say, and if my grandmother had balls, she'd be my grandfather. If this movie were better, we'd have liked it. But it just wasn't, sadly. You give it a 6. I think I give it a 6.5.
I think it needs just better personnel behind the scenes. I think that's all I needed, though.
Everybody in front of the camera was great. They just all they got to do was look gorgeous, stealing jewels. And if you like that, go see the movie. In the meantime, thank you so much for having joined Colin and myself for another episode of Inside Voices First Takes. We love getting to share our opinion with you, and we'd love to hear your opinion. Leave it down in the comment below. Hit the doobly-doo. Like it if you liked it. We'll see you next time.
Good night, Ireland.